Hello everybody, welcome back to the second episode of The Action. We are going to analyze the second game, Board 5 from the Lichess 45-45 League. And our customers today are Freefal in the white trunks and Johnhammer sporting the black trunks today. Let's see if he hammers it in, just so that I keep on scoring a punt on each game that I analyze for this beautiful league. Alright, so Sicilian is on the menu today, and it is going to be the Najdorf variation of that Sicilian with a6. Now it's very important to understand that more often than not, when we play moves like a3 and h3, they are completely utterly useless and should never ever be played. But there are some occasions when there is an exception to the rule, which what makes this really chess is a hard game. Whoa, that was 75 grammatical errors there, so let's go again. So that makes chess a hard game, that sometimes you have to override the rules in order to achieve something, but you always have a reason. So a6 is a good move here, because it takes away the b5 square from a lot of white pieces, but more importantly, because black wants to expand with b5 and then bishop b7 on the queen side, not only gaining space but pressuring the center. And the reason why I said that, despite of its reasonably obvious nature, is because white is going to soon participate with his own bunny ears on the board, and they will be very much an absolute nonsensical move, a total lemon as I like to call it. Now bishop d3 is a very rare and in fact harmless variation. Bishop e2 and bishop c4 are both considered better, just as much as bishop e3 or bishop g5, and there are another 28 moves here that you can do. Bishop d3 is harmless because for the time being the bishop is very useless on this diagonal, being wedged in behind these two pawns, plus it blocks the path of the queen towards the center. So after knight c6, black can actually challenge the knight right away, and bishop e3 now doesn't work because of knight g4. Please remember this move, that any time your opponent places a bishop on e3 or e6 for that matter, that can be attacked by a knight move like this, it means that this was a mishap, and we should have thought twice before we did it. But if we can't do that, we can't really maintain the knight on d4, and that's already a minor failure. The least of the evils is a take and then castle, and we still look like a chess player, and the position still reminds us to some sort of chess. White can then aim for f4, e5, and still claim that he has got some sort of push in the center and in the king side. For some reason my keyboard doesn't want to cooperate today, so I have to run the show through the mouse scroll thingy. Right, so bishop d3, knight c6, and then we play knight ce2. Now, if Freefal with one L, just to make sure that, yeah, we are not fighting against gravity, had listened to my analysis yesterday and to any of my videos, he would know that going backwards is always bad. And even when it's not bad, it is still bad. That's basically the golden rule of thumb. We're not going back, especially not when we have got a lot of pieces still undeveloped. We can't just go like this. It is a failure already, admitting that our whole opening setup was a disaster, which it wasn't really, because as I said, we could have taken on c6 instead and then castle, but thereby maintaining a far more flexible and better looking structure. And you know that I'm big on looks too, so if a move looks bad, it's bad. And this is just, yeah. Okay, that was poor, very poor. Now black played e6, which I like. It gives the pawn structure flexible, but just for the record, e5 is also a very good move here, because white has abandoned the center, which is my major mania, that all your opening moves should be fighting for the center. And then you look at this lemon and you go like, wow. So this is how we kiss goodbye to the center, and this is how we end up being worse after 7 moves of opening games. Yep, that's not a good thing when such thing happens to us. So probably if I would have been therefore a little bit stronger, but e6 is a-okay, and this is where white, no, castling is still acceptable, and after bishop e7, why would you do that? Please, please tell me that you were just kidding. Like, that was not for real. That was just a joke or something. Because normally when my students do this, I always tell them that if I had this game as white and I had a choice between playing that or chopping off my hand, I would have considered a chop, because this is just against everything that I live for in chess. So opening, you in the opening try to do two things primarily. Develop your stuff, control the center. If you play a move that does neither of these two, that's like, no go, scratch that, we're not going there. I don't care how good it looks or what a brilliant genius idea is there behind it. You just don't do it. As simple as that. So A3, don't go there. And I don't care if you had the best reason in the universe to play this move, or if you had seen Kasparov doing it the day before, or in fact Kasparov whispered in your ear during the game to play it. Nah, you don't go there. And I totally am mind blown about what it's meant to be doing, by the way, because if we wanted to prevent knight b4 and the loss of the bishop, then we just gave ourselves a humongous slap in the face, because I can do the same from knight e5. So I played a move that didn't prevent what I wanted to prevent, but at least I wasted a ton of time and opportunities to do something meaningful. So what should have been done? Literally anything. Take. Perfect move. Okay, and then f4. f4 right away. Bishop g5, although I don't really think it stands too well on g5 anymore, but that's beside the point. Far better than this complete lemon on a3. So I always get confused, by the way, who is who. Freefal, are you the black guy or the white guy here? Well, whichever. Please don't play a3 ever again. Promise me. Thank you. All right, moving on. a3, 95, b3. Now, this is what I call very much wishful thinking, because with this, white basically wants to play c4 and build up what we call the Maróczy bind, when these two pawns are controlling the center very nicely. First of all, you ain't gonna get it. Second of all, even if you do, it's not good at all. And third of all, is it developing? Is it controlling the center? Do we do that? No. So please live by the rule of center development. If you do neither, don't do it. That means that you just might as well have asked the cleaner lady from next door to come over and move a random piece on the board. That would be just as effective as you playing such moves like this, even though you technically had an idea behind it, and the cleaner lady just would have pushed a piece of wood on the board from A to B. Total waste of space. My favorite response to this would be something like d5, because my mania is that I always like to punish my opponent in the center for the... Oh, what am I doing? Come on, give me the blue color, dude. What? Okay, whatever. So when lemonness is happening on the side, we punish always in the center. So d5, ed, now we eliminate the bishop. And after queen takes, I can either take with knight or queen, and I'm going to crack open this diagonal eventually and put a bishop here, and my two bishops are going to dominate the two knights in this position. Now that said, what black did was also fine. He allowed c4, and then he took d5 here, is again very, very, very strong. And the reason is because now we managed to crack open the toilet door while we catch our opponent sitting on it. Even knight d3 is probably good here, and after queen takes, then take on d5 or queen takes, and we find ourselves in a totally open position, which white has no reason to have open, because he has got the two knights, so he would prefer to have lots of pawns on the board, preferably wedged in, so that we have a close scenario. Here, these two bishops are going to butcher these two knights. It's not even gonna be funny. So yeah, d5 at some stage here would have been essential. It is a stock standard way to achieve equality or more in the Sicilian anyway, but this is what common sense dictates here too. Now instead, after take, we came up with this rather funky queen d7, which is not as bad as it looks really, because b5 is now the main idea, but I would have preferred now just to play solidly with queen c7, b6, and then put a bishop here and still aim for d5, and once again the two bishops will guarantee the long-lasting and enduring advantage. Oh, what a beautiful sentence that was. Right, So queen d7, yeah, iffy. b5 pawn sack. I like the fact that we are going here rather brave. Bishop a6. Now the black pieces just spring up very nicely. And that was the opportunity to strike, my friend. That is the time when you go poof, smack in the face. Because now these two pieces are super busy guarding two different stuff. That and that. And that is what we call, in chess language, an overloaded piece. In this case, overloaded pieces. So what we do is that we take this guy, and now regardless of which dude chooses to take on e4, we take the customer on b5, thereby equalizing material and hoping that our central pawns will roll faster than the wing ones on the side. Just a possibility. Especially because after d5, although it does open up the bishop's diagonal, we create an isolated pawn, and later on this will be, or could have been, a decisive factor of the game. ed, rook d1, I like that move because it moves one heavy piece out of the pin. Rook fd8, a4. So that stabilizes the knight. I'm cool with that. Bishop b7, and we are about to reach the key moment. From here on, as long as we can keep this pawn on d5, black can't hope about any sort of initiative because that renders this bishop horrendously stupid for the rest of the game. But if we allow them to move it up and open up that diagonal, even at the cost of giving this pawn away, black will have some chances of building initiative. And that is our major enemy, as per said in the previous video already. When you are material ahead, you want to get rid of with any kind of hopes of initiative from your opponent's end. Bishop b4. Yep, but that beats me. I have no idea why this move happened at all. If anywhere the bishop would want to come here to pressure f2 and prepare for knight g4 with some kingside nasties. Yeah, bishop b4 is like mouse slip. Okay, knight e2. I would have already preferred to drop back. And this is not really going back in the sense what I was talking about before. It's more of a regrouping, blocking the pawn, and just getting everything under control. If we could have another move here and come in here, that would be fine and dandy. And I think that this was black's last chance to throw that pawn away for the mere sake of opening up this diagonal. So now if rook c7, I have already queen d5, guarding the bishop, and throwing in a tiny cheapie just for added measure. Because after bishop a5, which was designed to prevent rook c7, by the way, white already has a forced win, and a rather spectacular one at that. b4. Oh, nothing like having the fire alarm go off when I'm recording this. b4. Sorry about that, guys. Bishop takes, rook c7, and the game is over because of the two pieces. Sorry. I will repeat that. So b4, the idea is to decoy the bishop so that it doesn't control the c7 square anymore. Bishop takes, rook c7, double attack, g to the g. GG. We want a piece, we want the game. You may ask, yes, but why wouldn't they go there? Yes, they would. And then we keep on chasing poor dude. And poor dude has no way to control c7 anymore. G to the g. Right, so that was the first major hiccup in this game. Instead, we opted for take, which is very logical because now black's pawn structure is beyond salvation. Yeah. Imagine if good old Petrosyan had a position like this with pawns like that, he would have just cried for weeks on, and regardless of the score of the game. Knight e4, beautiful. King h8. And this was the moment when white, which we needed to realize that, okay, I have a firm grip on the position now, so I have to make sure that it remains so. Please note that b4 is still ridiculously strong, based on the same idea. But the one and only thing you don't want to do is to move this knight and allow the bishop to break out. So I would have preferred a queen f5 because any endgame is winning easily. Please note that against such pawn structure, the two knights are actually effective. So that's not going to be the standard case of two bishops versus two knights. It's going to be the standard case of white winning the game without any efforts whatsoever. But we went knight f5, which was a tad bit too ambitious for my liking. Rook here. queen there. Yeah, this is where all the problems begin. So queen here, d4. Rook takes d4. And man, oh man, what a beauty it was. Like, I just realized it now that after d4, rook d4, black played queen e6, which deserves a couple of hundred question marks, but it's actually not that easy to figure out what was happening here, because seemingly this queen is on, and so we need to run. And this is an instinct that at this level of chess ruins a lot of games, because people tend not to think an good old axiom that I tend to teach a lot to my students: when your opponent attacks your piece, try to figure out how you could attack theirs instead of moving your own away. And guess what? That would have been a fairly impressive way for a counter strike. And in fact, this is g to the g again, except with a different result, because if we take the queen, we take the queen here, and poor good horsey was always ready to jump back, but now it means that he's exposing the rook behind, and the game is over. Awkward. And of course, if the queen were to go anywhere, then I can take on f5, and it's a piece up for nothing. So let's just go back to this moment. So after d4, rook takes, black means the win by bishop takes. And instead played queen e6, and now white could have and should have again converted this advantage very easily. He played rook h4, and this is when all hell broke loose, because black played rook takes g2, white played king f1, and God, I got to love this bloodbath here. Black decided to throw in the kitchen and the sink in a spectacular manner, and I really loved him for it. So good on you, whichever you are, Johnhammer probably. Rook takes f2, look at that. All of a sudden the position has opened up, the two bishops are going to slaughter down on these diagonals, and make no mistakes, white is still winning, but now we have to be super duper careful. And this is what I like about grabbing the initiative, and this is why I don't like to allow moves like this to my opponents when they play such moves like this, because now again we have to work for the win. I love to win games where I don't have to do a thing, and as long as this knight stays on d4, this game is going to win itself. No problems whatsoever. Like, at this stage of the game, the cleaner lady can easily come in and push a piece and you can still win the game. As soon as this happens, now we have to dig in again and work hard for the win. And my, oh my, this is gonna be fun stuff. Watch this. King takes, bishop chook, king drops back, and bishop g2 check. Colossal, man. Love your play. Love your play. You are my new hero. I mean, we just threw in a rook, now a bishop. It's like just chucking money at them like there was no tomorrow. Take it. I don't want it. Whatever is left is good enough for me. Love in life. And it's really, really clever too. It's not just a spy check like you would assume. On the contrary, it actually is quite nasty. After queen takes, rook here, sorry, queen here, king here, rook here, black is going to emerge at least with a perpetual check. And that is superb. That is just superb. The idea is that if check, then check. And after king c3, bishop takes c1, we have an absolute mayhem and chaos on the board. And other than Ripka, no one can tell us who is playing for what result here, really, because although actually the material is even for starters, but these two pass pawns look fairly dangerous. But at the same time, my king is dancing in the middle of the board and is exposed to 75 million different checks and even checking sequences. So good luck with winning this one, my white friend. So all of a sudden this became impossible. So the dude went for king takes when he faced rook g8 check, the correct continuation. And in this position, believe it or not, but the only way to a safe and clear victory would have been king f3. Coming forward, let's learn from good old Steinitz, our first world champion, who said that I'm fighting bravely with my king, or something along the lines of that. That wasn't an exact quotation, but means the same nonsense. He got away with it because he was too good compared to his opponents. And after queen d5 check, rook e4, queen d3, knight e3, and it's just too much. I just have got too much stuff around my king. White is going to emerge victorious from this crazy variation. But instead, he actually played knight g3, which appears to be far smarter, really, because it keeps the king safer, or so it seems. But actually it allows queen e4 check. Black went for the more logical looking queen e2 check and lost promptly afterwards. After queen e4 check, black has got a... hang on, I'm talking nonsense, ignore me. Queen d5 check, that is. The point is that we need to give a check on the diagonal, denying king h1. So after this chook, black keeps again at least a draw. Please note that rook check, as in rook block, is impossible because of queen takes. And so after king f1, queen f3 check, king here, check, and we have got perpetual check, if that's what we desire. Or once again, we can go into the wilderness and play rook check here. And please note that again, the block is not good because rook takes and the knight can't recapture. And this is another very wild variation that could end in many different ways. Crazy stuff again, absolutely crazy. It's a great pity that actually black blundered here and played queen e2 check instead, because it allowed white to tuck the king away in h1 and block the upcoming check on g2, and thereby winning the game very easily. Queen f3 check happened, queen g2, and the poor dude had to take on b3, which was tantamount to resignation. Knight d6, very good, putting pressure on f7, bishop e3. I mean, what can you do? You are dead, poor guy. Rook c8, queen b1 chook, and he played queen f1. And this is the last finesse that I really wanted to show you, because I like to play chess in a spectacular way, if possible. In this position, knight f1 was actually possible. The rook can't take the queen because it's pinned, and this actually opens up a new checkmate threat, which is knight takes f7. I really need to fix my camera for the next recording because it keeps on shaking, and you guys will see me doing this, and that's just super disturbing. Sorry about that. So yeah, after knight f1, we have got this checkmate threat as an additional problem, and black can quit. But actually, queen f1 comes to the same thing, because after queen takes, knight takes. I hope that black was not hoping for this mate, because that's sadly just a tiny bit against the rules, and so we can't do that, and consequently we're going to lose the game in a couple of more moves, and black resigned once again. And it's interesting to note, because that's 2 in a row, we saw a game that turned several times throughout the course of the game. White was on top, black was on top, white was on top, black was on top. This is something that is rather typical at this level, and this is what these people on this level need to get better at, and that is to maintain some level of consistency. And once you achieve an easily winnable position, then you don't miss basic tactics like b4, and you don't commit positional suicide, although the position was still winning, so it's a bit harsh to say that. But basically, you never allow your opponent to get rid of with the useless isolated pawn and open up at the diagonal. And actually, yes, right here, the win was free for grabs for black by taking on g2. Now, is it a direct consequence of white playing knight f5 here? Not at all. But why would you give your opponent a chance like that when you didn't have to? And this is positional understanding, which is a little bit harder on this level of chess than tactics, because tactics is easy to see. I go there, they go there, I go there, we got killed. Okay, I got it. But it's harder to understand why knight f5, which by the way is the ultimate square for the knight, is not necessarily a great idea. By the way, knight f5, rook g8 here, if he had regrouped the other knight to d4, that would have been the ultimate positional success and triumph, because now we are controlling both of those crucially important squares with the cavalry, and the two bishops are visibly useless and helpless against the knights. Or even we could have gone in here and neutralized this bishop before it becomes too strong. one way or another, this needed to be done instead of allowing d4. That opened up a whole lot of opportunities for black, who right away could have won the game. It didn't happen. Instead, we entered an incredible bloodbath here and fireworks, and I really like the way how black just threw in the kitchen and the sink and just went like, stuff this, I'm gonna come at you, mate, with all my might. And he did indeed. And had he played he queen d5, he at least could have saved one half of the point. Sadly, it didn't quite happen, and white ended up victorious. But I think it was a really awesome game to watch, and really awesome to analyze. Lots of tactical tricks and subtleties, and I'm pretty sure that even the computer would have been confused at some moments before it could have come to a definite assessment of the position. Speaking of the computer, by the way, I got rid of with the computer assessment based on some requests on YouTube and Reddit as well. So now it's in absolute purity and it doesn't disturb us. And actually, that's going to be my parting advice to you. If you play a game and then you want to go through it to see where you went wrong, I suggest first you go through it by yourself without turning the computer on, because once you turn the computer on, it's going to show you all your mistakes, but it's not going to tell you why those moves were horrendous. And I'm not going to say that I can but they can't, because that would sound like I'm full of myself, but the computer doesn't do it. What it does is that it tells you that you are a moron, why did you do that? But it doesn't tell you what you should have done instead, or even if it does, it tells you a move. But it doesn't, and it can't explain to you in plain words that you should not have played in this position a3, because that's a complete lemon that doesn't control the center and it doesn't develop pieces. All it's going to tell you is you should have played knight c6. That's not learning chess. That's just replacing a mistake with a correct action, but humans don't learn that way. They need to understand why one is bad and the other one is wrong, otherwise they will revisit and redo the same mistakes all over again. You need to actually understand what's going on, and that is why I always ask my students too, that if they analyze their own games, which is a very good thing to do, don't use the computer at first. Try to figure out where you went wrong, take notes of that, and then compare it to what the computer says. That way, there is a better chance that you will be able to figure out why the computer's move is better than yours and what it's trying to achieve. But of course, best way is if you have a coach who can then tell you why you went wrong and where you went wrong, and more often than not, especially if that coach is worth their money, that will actually sync with what the computer says. Alright, so that was the wisdom for today, and that was the super entertaining game between Freefal and Johnhammer. And thank you guys very much for sending them to me. Thank you for the opportunity that I could analyze these games and publish them on my YouTube channel. And I'm going to be back with the remaining 4 in the upcoming days. I'm trying my best to be as quick with them as possible. Thanks all for tuning in, and I will be back with more soon. Bye.